to missions. Come on in, find a seat. Good morning, good morning. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen. All right, looks like we are almost all in. Do we have anyone else coming? All right, boys and girls, let's find a seat. Are there any more groups? Is this everyone? All right. Where did you guys just come from? Snacks. And it was pretzels. All right. Oh, it's terrible. We should be thankful for the snacks that we are given, even if we don't love them. All right, boys and girls, are we ready? Are we ready to hear more of Brother Andrew's story? Yes. All right. So I have the incredible privilege of taking you on a whirlwind adventure with Andrew today. We are going to travel all over Europe with Andrew. And so yesterday you heard about how Andrew became a Christian. And he started reading his Bible like crazy and going to church like crazy. And all of his friends and families were like, Andrew, calm down. Do you remember what Snow White, his friend, said? Do you remember what she said? Yeah. She's like, you should go to the movies. Well, you know what? Andrew did not do that. Instead, he went to more things to hear about God. And so he goes to a rally that's put on by a famous Dutch evangelist. And at this rally, the evangelist says, do you want to live a life of adventure? And Andrew's like, well, yeah. He's like, if you want to live a life of adventure, you need to be a missionary. You need to go where the Lord is calling you to go. And so Andrew realizes in that moment that, yeah, he wants to be a missionary. He wants to follow the Lord wherever the Lord is taking him. So after that rally, he goes home. He tells his friends and family that he is going to be a missionary. And his friend Thiel, she's like, Andrew, that's a bad idea. I don't like that idea because then you're going to go far away and I'm not going to be able to see you. She's like, you should get a job at the chocolate factory because the chocolate factory is right down the street. And at the chocolate factory, you can share the gospel with people and you can tell them about God. And so Andrew's like, well, I don't have anything else to do, so sure, I'll go get a job at the chocolate factory. So he goes to the chocolate factory and he is so excited because he's like, I'm going to share the gospel, I'm going to convert people, it's going to be amazing. And it's not. You know why? Because the ladies that work at the chocolate factory are awful. They are mean to him. They make fun of him because he has a busted ankle. They're super rude. They tell the worst jokes, and it makes Andrew's life miserable. And he's like, how am I going to share the gospel in this chocolate factory? These people are awful. Well, there's one girl there, another beautiful girl that he meets, and her name is Corey. And him and Corey become friends because Corey is a Christian. And she says, Andrew, together we can pray for our coworkers and we can invite them to church. And maybe through our prayers, they'll be saved. And you know what happened? They got saved. Andrew and Corey worked together to invite their coworkers to church, to share the gospel. And there were many people at that chocolate factory that became Christians. So for 2 years, Andrew and Corey worked together at the chocolate factory. But after 2 years, Andrew's like, I still want a life of adventure. I still want to serve the Lord as a missionary. And so he hears about a program called the WEC, the Worldwide Evangelization Crusade. And this is a 2-year training program for people that want to be missionaries. So they will invite you to this school and you will be trained in how to be a missionary. But it's in Scotland. And he lives in Holland. And so he tells Snow White, the beautiful Snow White, he's like, Thiel, I think I need to go to this school to be trained as a missionary. And she's like, Andrew, I don't like that idea. And I also don't think we should have a relationship anymore. So she breaks up with him. and he is so sad. Oh, wait, I forgot my sad pic. Where's my sad guy? There he is. He's so sad. But he knows that God is calling him to a life in the mission field. So he decides he's going to go anyways. He's going to go anyways. And so he applies to this program, and he's waiting to hear back if he gets into the program. And guess what? He gets a letter, and it says, Andrew, you cannot come to our school. And Andrew's like, wait, I need to go to your school. I want to be a missionary. How is this going to happen? So he's like, I'm not going to take no for an answer. So he goes to their headquarters, which are in England. He goes to London, England, and he goes to the director of the program and says, hey, you didn't let me into your school, and I want to be a part of your school. And they say, Andrew, we don't have a space for you. And he goes, well, I'm here. What can I do here? And the director says, well, you can like paint the building, and you can answer phones, and you can fix things. Andrew's like, sure, I'll do all of that. And then the director says, well, you can practice giving sermons. Andrew says, sure, I'll do that too. So Andrew spends a year in England just kind of doing odd things for the WEC headquarters, and eventually they have a spot in their program. And so the director says, Andrew, you've been here, you've been faithful, we are going to let you into our training program, so you're going to go to Scotland. So Andrew goes to Scotland, and this is actually a picture of the WEC Training Center, and you can see over the doorway, it says, have faith in God. Because the point of this program was to train their missionaries to trust God in everything. So Andrew took Bible classes, and he learned how to trust God. And he recalls this time as learning to follow the royal way. So during this 2 years in the training center, he learned that God is the king. And God is a great king. And a great, good king is always going to be good and great to his people. And so Andrew learned that he could ask his king for whatever he needed. And so there were times when Andrew was running out of money, and he needed money to pay for the school program. And so he would trust God, and God would send money from friends and family out of the country, and Andrew was able to pay for school. Andrew would also kind of look at his toothpaste tube and go, uh-oh, I'm running out of toothpaste, but I don't have any money to buy more toothpaste. So he would ask his good king, God, please take care of my needs. And God would either not allow that toothpaste to run out, or he would give Andrew money. He would send money right at the exact time that he needed it to buy more toothpaste. And so Andrew learned to trust his very, very good king. And this was the whole point of the training program, was to have faith in God. Well, after 2 years at the program, Andrew again feels like, okay, where am I going to go next? God, where are you leading me next? And he just so happens to come across a magazine. And in this magazine, there's an advertisement for a festival that's being held in Poland. Now, remember, Andrew's in Scotland. Poland's on the other side of Europe. And Poland, during this time, is said to be behind the Iron Curtain. So if you picture, like this picture, there's a curtain, but it's made of iron. Okay, that's not really what it's talking about, but it was an invisible line that separated Europe. And so you can see in the picture, there is countries that are in red, and then there's countries that are in green. Now, if you're looking, where is Poland? Is it a red country or a green country? It's a red country. So Poland is behind the Iron Curtain. It's one of these red countries. And countries that were in red, these ones that are in red, they have very, very few freedoms. The people there are not free to choose their jobs. They're not free to choose where they live. They're sometimes not even free to go to church. And so Andrew knows that there are Christians in these countries that are suffering. And he sees this festival as a chance to go to Poland and see for himself what life is really like there. So he packs up his suitcase, and he puts some like gospel pamphlets in his suitcase because he wants to go share the gospel, and he goes off to Poland. Okay? And when he's there, he is taken on lots of tours around the city. Okay, and he sees all these beautiful buildings. So you can see this big building, beautiful building on the right. But as Andrew's walking around the city, he's like, wait a minute. There's like one big, beautiful building, but the rest of the city looks kind of awful. It's been devastated by the war. There's lots of poor neighborhoods. And Andrew realizes, wait a minute, like the people here are really, they're suffering. And Andrew gets to visit 2 churches in Poland. And one of the churches in Poland looks kind of like this top picture, where it's full of people. There's lots of young people in this church. And it seems like they're worshiping freely. It seems like they're reading the Bible. But afterwards, he talks to the pastor, and the pastor's like, yeah, you know, the government tells us what we can and can't say. But, like, the government's done a lot of good for us, so we're just going to follow all their rules. But Andrew's like, but that means you can't say certain things. So he's a little bit confused. So he wants to go to visit another church. So he visits another church. And this church looks more like the one in the bottom picture, where there's not very many people there. Okay? The people that are there are acting really secretive, and they're quiet. And Andrew gets to talk to the pastor after this service, and the pastor says, yeah, we try and share the gospel. We try and teach the Bible. But if we do, we're going to get in trouble. And if we do, people are going to find out that they're going to know we're Christians, and that's not a good thing. That could get us in a lot of trouble here. So Andrew realizes that people in Poland are suffering. Christians in Poland are suffering. And on the very last day that he's in Poland, he witnesses this big, giant parade. Remember, he went there for a festival. So at the end of the festival, there's this huge parade, and everybody's celebrating. But this parade actually makes Andrew really, really sad, because he knows that there are so many people in Poland that are not celebrating, but they are suffering. And so Andrew has resolved right there that he is going to be a missionary to the churches behind the Iron Curtain. So Andrew goes home from Poland, and he goes back to Holland, and he kind of visits local churches, and he tells about what life was like in Poland. And while he's giving one of these talks, a lady comes up to him and says, I don't like what you're saying. I don't like what you have to say about Poland. You're saying very bad things. And Andrew's like, well, I'm saying true things. And she's like, no, it's not that bad. She's like, countries that are behind the Iron Curtain, they have so many freedoms. You just haven't been to enough of those countries. So you need to come to Czechoslovakia. And Andrew's like, well, I don't have enough money to do that. She's like, well, I will pay for your trip. You come for a month to Czechoslovakia. So Andrew's like, great, I guess God is calling me to Czechoslovakia. So off he goes to Czechoslovakia. And again, he's on all of these tours, and they're showing him these big, beautiful buildings, and they're saying, oh, the people in Czechoslovakia have so much freedom. But Andrew's like, I feel like you're lying to me. I feel like that's not true. And he is right, because he visits some churches in Czechoslovakia. And at those churches, the pastors and the people of those churches say, yes, we are oppressed. Our freedoms are being taken away. He learns from one pastor at this church that every Christian pastor in Czechoslovakia has to register to get a license to be a pastor. And so every 2 months they have to register with the government, and the government says, okay, you have permission to be a pastor. Now we want to see what you're going to teach. Now, if the government person didn't like what they're going to teach, they say, never mind, you can't get a license. You can't teach in this country. You have no job anymore. So Andrew's like, wow, that's awful. And then he hears from another young man, and this young man says, yeah, it's unpatriotic in Czechoslovakia to be a Christian, right? So we're almost to the 4th of July, right? We wave our flags, and we're patriotic. But in Czechoslovakia, if it is found out that you are a Christian, it's like you're an enemy of the country. And so you could lose your jobs, you could get kicked out of school. And so this is making Andrew so sad. And he realizes that Christians, their hands are tied. Christians are suffering in these countries. And at the very end of his trip, he meets a young man. And this young man says, he gives him a little pin, and I actually have one on my jacket. Okay, it looks kind of like this. It's a silver cup. And this young man says, I want you to take this pin and I want you to wear it. And so that anytime anybody asks you what your pin is about, you can say, this represents the cup of suffering that the Christians behind the Iron Curtain are experiencing. And this will remind you to pray for us. And so Andrew takes this pin, he puts it on his jacket, and he leaves Czechoslovakia. And he has a very, very heavy heart. And he is more excited than ever to figure out a way to encourage Christians who are suffering behind the Iron Curtain. So ladies and gentlemen, you are going to come back tomorrow and hear how Andrew does that. Thank you so much for being such great listeners. Whew. You're gonna find your leader and go to your next station. We bought it on Amazon.